It is now my pleasure to introduce Arthur Blank. The easy way out would be to say that Arthur Blank needs no introduction. But the reality is that there are many Arthur Blanks, and I have had the good fortune to meet most of them. There's the Arthur Blank who co-founded Home Depot with his partner Bernie Marcus. They created one of the best corporate management teams ever. There's the Arthur Blank, the philanthropist. As chairman of the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation, Blank has invested in Atlanta's parks, trails, the arts, and in our youth. There's Arthur Blank, the civic leader. And Sam Williams, you'll remember this only too well. It was during his year as chairman of the Metro Atlanta Chamber that Blank fought to make sure that the newly elected governor did not change the state's flag back to the controversial stars and bars. Created a little friction there, as I remember. There's Arthur Blank, the gentleman. When a new management team threatened to erode the culture of the company that he had co-founded, and let me be very clear, that's not the current management team, a previous management team, Arthur kept his feelings to himself, much to my dismay, by the way. There's Arthur Blank, a trustee of the Carter Center, who despite pressure did not resign from that board after our former president wrote the book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. There's Arthur Blank, the loyal friend who stepped down from Post Properties when his close friend John Williams lost control of the company. And lastly, there's Arthur Blank, who owns the Atlanta Falcons, a venture where he has brought his management culture and philanthropic values to the team, and that will be most of his topic for today's lunch. But as you can tell from my short descriptions of some of the Arthur Blanks, there's a common thread that runs through them. Here is a man of integrity, courage, and conviction who travels through life with grace. Now please join me in welcoming all our Arthur Blanks. Thank you.
Maria, thank you. I'm sitting across the table from one of the founders of CNN and one of the leaders of journalism in the world, Tom Johnson, and I'm thinking that Maria Saporta should be at that table because whether it's the work that Maria has done at the AJC or currently Atlanta Business Chronicle, Maria, I think, has represented the best of her profession. She can be a nag. There's no question about that. But she, when it comes to Atlanta, and I've been here since 1978, Atlanta's never had, I think, a greater friend and somebody that has worked so hard to speak the truth always and raise the right issues, but always with a focus on how to make this, in a positive way, how to make the city and this region and the state a better place for all of us. So I want to thank you for your courage and bravery and your integrity and the trust that you've established, not only with me, but so many other business leaders in this community over many, many years. So thank you so much, Maria. Yeah. Well, it's been 2 years since I've been here, and I thought if we didn't turn around the football team, I'd never be invited back. So as a reasonable conclusion, that would be. I asked Kim this morning, Kim Schreckengoster, EVP of Operations and our Chief of Staff for all of our businesses, when I was here last, and she reminded me this morning, it was February in 2007. So, and that was after my 5th year as an owner, and I could spend the next half an hour, half a day, half a month talking about what happened between 2007 and today. Things, like Michael Vick and Bobby Petrino, and obviously the economy today and all of those issues. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you have regarding any of those subjects. But I really want to focus on today and really where we are. I promised you a roller coaster ride, a positive ride in 2007. Didn't know it was going to turn into a roller coaster ride for me. Let me share some thoughts with you about, firstly, about your football team. I think that hiring of two people last year represented a sea change for the Atlanta Falcons. One was Thomas Dimitroff, who had over 22 years of talent evaluation experience in the National Football League, had come from New England. He was director of college scouting there, had done really a great job in building up that franchise, helped draft the players that got to them to 4 Super Bowls, 3 of which they won. The second person was Mike Smith. Mike Smith was defensive coordinator, our current head coach, Smitty, in Jacksonville, had been in the NFL for a number of years, had great experience. And, you know, people today, they say to me, gee, you see so much more relaxed and at peace when you talk about your football team. Other things I'm not so relaxed and peaceful about. And there's always intensity during the fall as it relates to football, for sure. But I am, because when I look at these two guys, Smitty and Thomas, who have the shared vision of what our football team should look like, both on the field and off the field, and I see the great leadership that Rich McKay, our president, has provided to them, both on the football side and in a support role, and on the business side, I couldn't feel better about, you know, the leadership that we have in place. It's very much like the kind of leadership today we have in place at HD. I feel very comfortable and at peace, finally, with Frank Blake as our CEO there, and I want to thank again HD for supporting this luncheon today and for the work that you two gentlemen, amongst 300,000 other folks, do at our company. I very much appreciate it. 2008, by any measure, would be a great success for the company, for our football team. Flip back to my company mind there in a second. At 11-5, it was the first playoff we had since 2004. Most people predicted the team would win between 1 to 4 games. We had a writer here in Atlanta, Mark Bradley, who went way out on the limb, said maybe 5. And that was, and he was, you know, considered to be slightly off the edge when he thought about 5 wins. Sporting News, which is one of the senior trade publications in our business, predicted we'd have 1 win and 15 losses. And Coach Smith says they got the numbers right. They forgot to put the dash in the right place. So instead of 1 and 15, it was 11 and 5. And at the same time, the first time in the history of the National Football League, I was on the phone this morning with our commissioner talking about something else, and he reminded me again, he said, you know, you guys, what you did last year was really remarkable. And it was, and it's a tribute really to Coach Smith, to Thomas Dimitroff, and to our young quarterback, Matt Ryan. First time in the history of the NFL, you had Executive of the Year and Coach of the Year and Rookie of the Year on the same team. So, you know, it provides a foundation, you know, support for us as we go forward. And it's all about, you know, sustainability. Brad and I were talking about sustainability a minute ago as it relates to our region and our economy and our approach to water and air and pollution and those kinds of subjects. But sustainability in the NFL has to do with, you know, three or four things. What you need is a reasonably good owner. And you'll have to decide if you have a reasonably good owner or not. You need a great head coach, you need a great general manager, and a great quarterback. If you have those 3 things, you can build the piece parts around that for a long period of time. And that's what we're in the process of doing, building a sustainably winning organization. So I'm thrilled about where we are. That kind of environment helped create a situation we could bring in a couple of top free agents this year. Tony Gonzalez, who will be a first ballot Hall of Fame tight end, finest tight end in the history of the game, 10-time Pro Bowler. Started out well for us this year. And Mike Peterson, very experienced linebacker who played with Coach Smith in Jacksonville. The other thing which I want to point out, and this is for the second consecutive year, your city, your region, has led the National Football League in new season ticket sales, which is a tremendous credit to Atlanta, particularly last year. I would say this year because people had aspirations looking at 11-5, playoff team, very competitive, very well thought of, et cetera. But last year, Smitty was Smitty who, Thomas was Thomas who, And Matt Ryan was a very big question. So before anybody was anybody, and before people were looking at a record potentially of 3-4 wins, they supported this football team. So I want to thank everybody in this room that is a season ticket holder. For those of you that are not season ticket holders, we still have season tickets available. Or we still have tickets available for a select number of games. But I sincerely do want to thank Atlanta. Atlanta is a great city. Obviously, I've raised my family here. I have 6 children, name and age. I have a child. And we've learned to love Atlanta, and obviously it's the place we started our company here. So while we're happy about what happened in 2008, if you talk to our coach, if you talk to anybody in our building, our focus is not on 2008. It's on 2009 and beyond. It's very much like Brad and Ron, the environment you find still today at HD, is that for many years at HD, we would bring people into the company, and sometimes we'd get some complaints from associates for bringing in too many people, et cetera, from the outside, and I have to remind them is that the only 2 people were there originally were myself and Bernie. So when we left, there were 250,000 associates. I said, so you all came from the outside. But people would come into our building, into meetings, et cetera, and they would attend meetings, and they would say, it would say to me afterward, if I didn't know better, it would sound like this company is really in trouble. I said, because all the focus in your meetings is always what's wrong and how do you get better, and it's never about the achievements and about, the increase in volume and the earnings and the performance of the stock. It was never about those things. So that mentality, which still exists today at HD, I believe, also exists, on your football team. So at the end of 2008, Coach Smith and the coaching staff, they re-scouted, self-scouted, if you will, every player that we played during 2008. Every single play was re-scouted again to examine how do we get better, as a team. And at the beginning of the camp, and I want to read this to you, training camp this year, the coach told this to the players: success does not breed success. It breeds complacency or orphan egos that are inflated. We must recommit as a team and as individuals and set even higher goals. And that philosophy created the cornerstones of our fundamental beliefs for this year, which is humble and hungry. Humble in the sense of we have confidence in ourselves, but yet we know we need to get better, we know we need to improve, and being hungry at the same time is that we work every day to figure out how, in fact, we do get better. Smitty has a coin that he has given out selectively, and it's a Falcon on it in the front, Falcon logo, and helmet, and the back says humble and hungry. If you don't have the coin with you and he asks you, it costs you $200. So it's a reminder for all of us that we need to be humble and we need to be hungry at the same time. The other night I was putting my son to bed, and I had on some sweat clothes, and he turned to me, it was about 9:30 at night, he said, "Dad, where's your coin?" I said, "Well, Joshua, I've changed, and my coin is inside." He says, "It costs you $200, Bob." So kids, they watch it, and the whole notion inside of our building, and I go back to our days at HD, is that good is the enemy of great. So we're satisfied with last year. We're not where we need to be. Good is the enemy of great. So we understand the expectations with our fans are high. We understand the expectations with the media is high when you come off 11-4. As a result of that, we got a very tough schedule. We have the 4th most difficult schedule this year in the NFL based on wins and losses from 2008. So far this year, we've played 3 games. We're 2-1. We have a tough road ahead of us the next 7 games. 5 of them are away, starting this week in San Francisco. So I can't predict to you what the outcome of the season is going to be. People ask me often, well, tell me, how many games are we going to win? I said, if I knew, I could really, I'd really be successful. But I'll promise you this: we'll be prepared for every game. We'll play with a lot of energy. We'll play with a lot of passion, and we'll have a better team. We do have a better team in 2009 than we had in 2008. So beyond 2009, one of the major subjects that we all focus on as we look at the franchise is the importance of a stadium. And I want to spend just a few minutes talking about it today. I want to tell you why I think it's important. First, the Falcons are falling behind other teams in the National Football League in terms of experience for our fans. Since the Dome was opened up in 1992, there are 31 other teams that compete in the NFL, as you probably all know. 25 of the 31 teams have had new stadiums built, or stadiums essentially that have been built, since that period of time. And each one that's been built has better fan amenities, better technology, better support for our sponsors. There's a whole variety of things that are substantially better than we can offer today. So, we're concerned that our competitive edge in this area is dulling. We want to make sure we have a stadium that is up to NFL standards, that creates the right kind of environment for our fans and our sponsors that are there. Now, we're not sitting on a pat hand, and we're not complaining about it. We're not whining about it. We've committed $53 million in the last 3 years. Over 40 of it, even though it's a state-owned facility, came from yours truly, to make sure the Dome feels as good as it can feel. But that's only going to be for a period of time. Second, beyond the fan experience, the new stadium will provide the long-term financial health for this franchise. It's not about me. It's about having a franchise in Atlanta for this region, for the state that we're proud of, that's fundamentally sound. The way the math works in the NFL, salary cap, which obviously is about 60% of our cost or higher, is all based on the averages for the league. So when you have a revenue base that's substantially below the average, and unfortunately with our stadium situation, that's where we are, despite the efforts of the support of Atlanta, we find ourselves essentially having to support the team at a principal on a yearly basis. Thirdly, a new stadium will continue to support this region in terms of being a world-class city. It's important we have world-class facilities and venues, not only for sports, but for art, for education, for all the things that are important for the quality of life for all of us. So Atlanta has worked hard to develop this reputation, and as we go forward, we want to make sure that our stadium continues to match it at the same time. This will be a public-private partnership. I want to be clear about that. This is a process that takes about 7 years. We're in the early stages of the process. We will have a huge financial commitment to building the stadium ourselves, but we do expect support from the public sector as well. Another point I should make clear is that we have a wonderful relationship with the Georgia World Congress Center. This deal was structured, prior to 1992. At the time the Dome opened up in '92, it was a state-of-the-art deal, if you would, in the NFL. It's just become aged really since then. We will continue to look at sites downtown, continue to work with the Congress Center, continue to look at sites in other areas of Atlanta as well. Our lease with the authority goes through the year 2020, or when the bonds are paid off, which could be as early as 2015, 16, or 17. So we will continue to work on this process and continue to work on this path, and we're making a lot of progress. But as you hear about it in the next couple of years, hopefully you'll be able to respond to some of the questions. Before I take questions, I want to just make a couple of comments about the economy, and then we'll open it up for some questions. Certainly my viewpoint and views of a lot of other people is that the economy is turning. As Warren Buffett said, and I'll quote him in a recent piece in the New York Times, the United States economy is now out of the emergency room and appears to be on the slow path to recovery. And that supports everything that I've read, and I felt my own interpretation of everything I've read and seen as well. Having said that, and this is not great news for everybody, but I think it's reality, is that I think this will be a protracted process that we're going to go through. People need to pay back debt that was incurred during very good times. People need to replace the values they lost in the stock market over the last couple of years, and people need to replace the decline in value in their housing over the last couple of years. I also think, in my viewpoint, there's been some permanent scarring that has taken place amongst our consumers. I think people will maintain a more of a thrifty kind of approach to their expenditures than they have in the past. I think it's going to affect how quickly the economy is going to bounce back, and I think it's going to put companies like HD, and I know HD is doing this, and other companies and service providers, products and service providers, in a situation where they have to re-ask the questions. Are we serving our customers the best way we can? Can we be leaner? Can we be meaner? Can we be more efficient? Can we be more responsive? All of those questions have to be re-asked and re-answered again in a much more difficult environment for every single company today in America. People, I think, are going to be much more selective about how they're spending their money going forward. Doesn't mean they won't be spending it. I think they'll be even more selective. In terms of an investment opportunity, there is one great industry that's very important to all of us that represents an opportunity to invest in. It's an industry where consumer base is in fact growing much faster than the business can handle. That sounds like a good news story, but it's really not a good news story. Atlanta's nonprofit community is struggling, as it never has before, to take care of the increased demands of folks who live in Atlanta City and this region and in the state. The Georgia Center for Nonprofits recently reported that 25% of the nonprofits surveyed are seeing a decrease in their support and donations in 2009. 64% of those same groups say demand for services has increased dramatically, and in addition, that more and more of these nonprofits are having to dip into principal or their reserves in either delaying programs or having to cut needed staff. So there are many examples. One recent one was reported by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is that the Salvation Army announced that it was unable to open up a nearly completed new shelter for the homeless for families in the Atlanta area, had to refunnel some $665,000 that was going to be used to support that shelter to just take care of the emergency need of families that had a variety of needs. So it's a nonprofit version of a perfect storm, if you will. Our own family foundation has been more responsive. We've refocused a lot of our needs to a variety of organizations in the greater Atlanta area that are taking care of more immediate needs today, and many other organizations are doing the same thing. So it's something for everybody, I think, in this room to think about, that when you leave this building today, the storied building with a great history today, that you think about what else that we can do, what else you can do, what else we can do to help people that are in need. I know that the circumstances for us personally and for our companies are not as good as they were several years ago, but we have to dig down deeper and find resources, time resources, financial resources, to make a difference in the lives of folks out there who are really struggling today in a much more significant way than they have in the past. Let me end with flipping back to football for a second. A few years ago, a writer, his name is Michael Mandelbaum, he's a professor of American Foreign Policy at Johns Hopkins University in Washington, published a book, it's a great book called The Meaning of Sports. In his book, he talks about that team sports provide three key satisfactions of life in the modern age today. One is that it's a welcome diversion. It's from daily routine, from the burdens, and all the elements of drama and excitement that's important to our lives. All is added back when you visit professional sports teams. Number two, coherence and clarity, whether it be the number of players, the game we're playing. In today's often time-consuming, very complicated world, sports have a way of defining things pretty simply. There's an outcome. As a result, there's an outcome. You can measure it. You can see it. Fans can figure out for themselves exactly what's going on. And thirdly, they provide, in many cases, and we think in most cases in the NFL, despite some examples that you hear about from time to time, heroic examples of young men and young women that you can admire and folks you can look up to in a whole variety of ways. It's for their talent and then they're for good deeds. So we think those are the three things, and I agree with Michael that people relate very much today to team sports. So when I first read the book, I understood all of that very clearly. And over the last year, I found myself kind of reflecting back in today's economy, today's world, you know, how do those things still play out? And I would still argue with you, not argue, but make the point, I guess, in this downturn, in these difficult times, that your football team is ready to provide, you know, not only the diversion, but provide the clarity, provide the cohesiveness, provide the heroic examples that are important for all of us today as we live our lives. So our commitment to you, as they've been since 1992, is a is another version, Brad, of our three-legged stool at HD, but in this case it's to build a winning team on the field, a sustainably winning team on the field, a team that's involved in this community, that cares about the community. On Tuesday we had our hometown huddle, which many of you have heard about. The only team in the NFL where all 53 of our players were actually out in the community. Other teams sent a variety of players out. We sent all 53 of our players, asked them to go, and they were very happy to do it. And have a winning team both on the field and when you come to the games themselves, have a great game day experience. Make it a special place because we feel like we have responsibility for you and your families, not only for the 3 hours and 7 minutes while the game is going on, but for getting there 2 hours before, whether it be experience at Falcons Landing, pregame, during the game, in any way, shape, or form we're able to do that. So with that, thank you for your time, your attention. I'll be happy to take questions. For how long do I have, Maria?
10
to do?
minutes.
Yeah, be happy.
10
Thank
minutes.
you. Thank you.
All right, who wants to go first? It would be someone way back here.
Yeah, and I know there'll be a question about Michael Vick, so I'll get this out of the way, so you don't have to ask the question.
Let me ask you a question. about
Okay,
Michael Vick.
let me give you the answer before you ask the question. I'm happy that Michael's in Philadelphia. He's in a great organization. He's got a wonderful owner, a great president, general manager. He's got a fine quarterback there in McNabb. He'll transition back into the league. I certainly wish Michael well. I've been in touch with him, and I'm certainly supportive of the decision that was made by the commissioner. It'll be exciting to see him back in the Georgia Dome on December 6th. So it'll be kind of interesting seeing him in a little different uniform. So how much he'll play then, I'm not sure. It'll probably very much depend on how the other quarterbacks are playing for the Philadelphia Eagles at that time.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Linda Sherbert, and I really enjoy hearing you talk about the Falcons, and
Thank you.
You've inspired me to go.
Well, great. Wonderful. Okay.
But since
The gentleman at your table is sitting just 2 over from you. Will be happy to make sure you get whatever information you need regarding season ticket sales. Yeah.
But since I work for a publication that has to do with homes,
Mhm.
and since you are connected to the home building, home renovation industry, I wonder if you might talk just for a minute about, where you see that situation evolving. I know that's sort of a general question.
Yeah, it is, but my answer would be, and Brad or Ron's associate here can give you a different answer, but my answer at the end of the day, one of the reasons that our industry, that the home improvement industry, and led by a great company like HD, is going to be a wonderful investment for a long period of time because people invest in their homes. That's their single biggest commitment they make. It's where they go through their life cycle events, where they raise their families, with their children. They go through, and so it's where they spend their time. At the end of the day, they're going to invest back in their homes. They're going to repair their homes. They're going to maintain their homes. They're going to invest in their homes in a whole variety of ways. So, if you're a leader in that industry, and certainly these two gentlemen, they represent, a leader in this industry, not because I was associated with the company, because that's what the facts are today. I think that I have great confidence that they'll continue to respond to the needs of the customers, both on the do-it-yourself side as well as on the professional side. So I think it's the right kind of industry to be invested in, personally.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tony Kruger with Atlanta Daybook, and I'm going to give you a little background about myself. I played at Appalachian State University,
Uh-huh.
and we were.
That's where my wife went to school. Yeah.
Our first year we
Yeah.
were 5 and 6.
Uh-huh.
And that following year, that 2005 season, we won 3 straight back-to-back
Right.
national
Yeah.
championships. So
Were you on the team then?
yes, sir.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. You've got a great coach. There was a Coach Moore, I think. Coach Moore had been there for 400 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Great football coach. Yeah.
But the thing I noticed about our team, the change was the team chemistry. I know you guys want to be great off the field and
Right.
great on the field. Are y'all great within? And I think that's the key to being a championship team instead of being just a great team.
Right.
Do you guys
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and I think if you look at the successful teams, the NFL, it's a little different than when you're playing golf. You know, you're playing out there, you're playing by yourself, and you're not a team player. It's okay. You're just playing for yourself. Football is the ultimate team game. It depends on chemistry and teamwork and working together. And the great coaches in the NFL, the great general managers in the NFL, they bring together a group of like-minded men, like you do in a business, that share a vision, that share a culture, that believe in what they're doing collectively. It's not about them, it's about the team. And I think that starting with our quarterback today, Matt Ryan, who's the first guy to come to work, the last guy to leave, it's what you'd want with any senior executive you want in any business you're connected to. But it follows down all of our players, whether they're draft choices or free agents or seasoned vets or college free agents that are trying to find a way in the National Football League. They are committed to the values and the vision that we have, and it's not about them, it's about teamwork. That's why Tony Gonzalez, as said earlier, first ballot Hall of Fame player, wanted to be in Atlanta because he had the greatest opportunity to win here when he understood the chemistry and so the leadership we had in our coaching staff. We're blessed also being able to maintain the quality of our coaching staff and the consistency of our coaching staff. All of our coaches from 2008 are back this year, which is a little unique in the National Football League.
Okay, our next question over here.
Hi, Shay Watkins from the Metro Atlanta Chamber. One of the
Morning.
things that Atlanta prides itself on historically is corporate involvement,
Right.
CEO involvement, and commitment to the community. Some people have said that that is a little bit lacking these days, and that a lot of corporations don't have that same spirit. What are your thoughts about that, and what can we do to make sure that new CEOs that come in are engaged in the community?
Yeah. Well, I think that sitting somewhere here is Sam Williams. Sam, where are you?
He's got the next question.
Oh, he's got the next question. But okay, well, I'm surprised you didn't just ask Sam the question. You would have gotten. But I would tell you, and I don't say this because Sam is sitting here, but we're blessed to have Sam as president of our Chamber of Commerce. I had an opportunity to work with Sam for a number of years, and a lot of our staff does today. Kim is on the board of the Chamber. Rich McKay is the president of our Falcons. Penny McPhee, president of our foundation. The history of Atlanta, because Atlanta is only 550,000 people only, not negating the size of the city, but that's what it is from a legal perspective. The region is 5.5 million people. So the history of Atlanta is that public-private partnerships, have worked well together. And whether it be Mills Lane, the history of this room, the history of this club, what's happened in Atlanta has always been significantly in part because of the business leadership in this community has stepped forward and has worked with the public leaders that we've had at the same time. It's not just been private, it's been public-private partnership. And I think that because of the structure of the region, that's been a requirement. I still think you find that today. You find that in a whole variety of ways. We have had occasionally a CEO who came through Atlanta, one that I can think of but was not very involved here on a local basis, and that was really very unfortunate. I think you'll find the great majority of our leadership in Atlanta of these major companies is involved. They care about Atlanta. They care about the Chamber, and because they have a leader in Sam Williams and a Chamber that's so effective in getting its work done and working with the public leadership that we have as well, they're happy to make that commitment because it's not just going to meetings and hearing people speak. It's going to meetings and getting important work done and being effective at those meetings. Most of these people have a very tight time schedule, so the use of their time is very important to them. So I think we've had a good history of that. I still think it's there today.
We have time for two more questions.
Yeah.
Sam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to come here to Chris, and then we'll end the time.
Thank you. Chris Schroeder. The last Super Bowl we held in Atlanta was a thriller in the Dome. But
Right.
It was a triple about an ice storm outside.
It was.
And the rumor since then has been that the NFL would not award a Super Bowl to Atlanta.
Well, the way the process works, there are number one, the league does not actually make the decision. It's made by the owners. The league actually is not. I mean, they're involved in the process of taking all the bids and making sure everybody's kind of like the IOC has done for the games. So they set up the process, and then the owners vote. Unfortunately, a lot of the owners are my age or older, and they have very long memories. So all they can remember is the ice storm in Atlanta. People have very good feelings about Atlanta. They represent how important this is as a hub to the Southeast, as a hub to actually a lot of the franchises in the Southeast. If you ask Paul Tagliabue, who is the retired commissioner now of the league, he always views Atlanta as being the hub of not Miami Dolphins, not Charlotte, not Tennessee Titans, not the Jacksonville Jaguars, not to criticize those franchises at all. They're great franchises and great communities, but he always viewed Atlanta as being the hub of that. So, I would not give up on an aspiration or a dream that we could host another Super Bowl. It does take a major commitment, financial commitment on behalf of the city to do it. It's not an inexpensive commitment. On the other hand, the returns coming back are huge to the community. So, we'll continue to work on it. I don't think, quite honestly, in the Georgia Dome, for a number of years we will have that opportunity. I'm hoping in a new stadium we would.
Okay. Michael.
Mr. Blank,
Yeah.
our banks today own too many foreclosed properties in the
Right.
Atlanta area. They're trying to manage empty homes. They own too many tracts of property that are partially developed and they have all the utilities in the ground. Are we going to get out of that anytime in the next 2 to 5 years? How are we going to get out of that? What's the proper approach?
Yeah, well, I think we are going to get out of it, but as I said earlier, I don't think this is going to be one of these kind of recoveries. I think it's going to be a recovery that's going to look something like that. Somebody said to me, I can't remember who it was the other day, that this is going to be a recovery that a statistician will love, but only, So I think you'll see a very slow recovery. I think it's going to take, jobless rate getting down from where it currently is. We got to, we have to deal with that issue, and I think we will over time. I think consumers have to get some confidence back, pay down some debt, see their stocks do a little better, see the value of their homes increase a little bit, not dramatically, but increase some from year to year. And I think we'll get back to a healthier pattern. Having said all that, I want to go back and repeat what I said earlier, only to make the point, more emphatically. I do think the mindset of the American consumer has changed, maybe not for 100 years, but for a relatively long period of time. And I do think that everybody who's in business today needs to think about that differently. If they're counting on, quote, the good old days, kind of carrying them through, I think that's a bad way to run any business today. I think we'll be fighting harder for consumer dollars in every way that we possibly can. And I know at HD that Frank Blake's doing that. I'm sure many companies in this room are doing the same thing as well.
Let's all give a hand to Arthur White.